bit of a something going on right here. What I'm going to do is start with the tillering aspect and really try and take some material off of here to get that limb bending such that it straightens out the twist on that tip. Not sure that letting it sweat in at this point is really going to do it any real good, but nevertheless, I'm going to stick with the process and let it sit here for 1/2 hour, and then so we got the tillering going on and trying to work on getting things straightened out. So my limb tip is kind of running off in this direction, and you can see that I marked it here with an arrow as to the direction I need it to go. You know, and there's a number of ways that we can work on that. You know, we can thin edges and whatnot. We can take belly wood off the offending side where it's bending in the wrong direction. So wherever it's bending in the wrong direction, it means it's too strong on this side. And to get it to go back to straight, you would want to take it off the surface that's not bending that well to get it back to straight. But something that works very well, that is a very rarely employed technique, I think. I don't know this to be certain because I don't build other people's bows. But if I got something to wedge this between and literally manipulate the tip in the direction I need it to go, such that it will take a bend, right? So it's almost like forcing set into the limb, but in the direction you need it to go laterally, right? So I've got it between my I don't know, my garage door track and the frame of the house here, and I'm bending it. Usually I do this out between a couple tree limbs out in the yard, but there's like a foot of snow in the grass, and so I'm kind of avoiding that. And I'll just hold it here, you know, to give it some permanent like bend in the direction that I need it to go. And you can see the string is then tracking on the opposite side of where it's been tracking. And in a lot of cases, that will true up a limb very well. Longbow, recurve, whatever, when you're dealing with pretty small dimensions, you know, at the point where you're doing some of the final tillering, that's a very effective way to straighten out limb twist or limbs that kind of run off laterally in the wrong direction. All right, here's how we're bending, guys. Got that tip trued up. So we got to work it in to make sure that it holds. So here's how this guy's bending right now. Seems to be doing pretty well, and at 24 inches, we are pulling 43 pounds. So we're in pretty good shape here to get the full draw on a good hunting weight bow. Just going to exercise it here a bit and get a feel for how these limbs are bending. I got it hitting 25 inches here. At 25 inches, we're pulling 45. So really, we'll check it on the tillering stick next. Gonna get a feel for how this thing is bending with a tillering gizmo. From first appearances, I feel like I'm getting pretty good bend in this portion, actually, of both limbs. We might be straightening out a little in the outer thirds here. So I'm gonna see what I get as far as a comparison between limbs. The string seems to be tracking off of this top limb pretty well. It's still favoring this side just a little bit. And you'll see I still got a marking as to which direction I'm trying to get things to move. But it's tracking much better than it was. Now, I have also, for future reference, kind of marked out the one side of the limb that would need to be weakened in order to get it to bend more in this direction, right? So I'll always know as I'm removing wood, I'm going to kind of favor this side of the limb until I come into complete compliance. So this is one of those kind of small incremental methodology to getting this thing trued up. So I'm going to continue working down the tillering tree, continuing to pull to longer and heavier weights. But as I progress, each progression is working to move that limb tip without doing too much work at any one time to overdo the correction. Now here's what the tillering gizmo has given me. Hopefully the light is okay here. So I got some marks here to take off, and of course I'll favor the one side of the limb. On the other side, I've got just a couple marks appearing right here. So I was right, it's kind of that outer third of the limb on both sides that needs to be removed. So we'll just get along taking probably 20 wipes with a card scraper on both limbs in those spots, get it out, exercise it again, and see where we land. All right, this guy was giving me 45 pounds at 26 inches on this trip just now to the tillering tree. We're going to go ahead and take it through another run with the tillering gizmo, and I'm pulling it to 22 inches to get my gizmo readings here. And I am getting some readings. And it's telling me just right here on my upper limb, and right in here on my lower limb. Very interesting. So I need a little more removal on this lower limb right here. And as it turns out, it's in coincidence with a node on the bamboo, which is not atypical. And so is this little spot right here, right with a node. So we'll do a removal again. We'll go ahead and remove those areas and put it on the tillering tree one more time. All right, here's our status update on this bow. It's either pulling very smoothly to full draw or taking a little bit of compression on the belly side, and it is taking some compression, but not as much as you would think given the way the draw weight is running. So I'm pulling at 27 inches and about 48 pounds. So we're barely going to hit the 50-pound mark at the pace we're going here. Something to be aware of, I guess. So this is exactly how the string is tracking when it is pulled and then left to come back to the recurves on its own. So this is the string contact that it wants to make. Now we're going to go ahead and like mark this off right here, and what we'll do is we'll get our string grooves to match this right here. And then from this point forward, everything else is going to kind of be dictated by the path of the string on the recurve. So we can start thinning the tip, and we can start doing some other things to start finishing this bow off. The positive tiller on this guy, I've got 7.5 inches on the top limb string gap, and I'm sitting at about 7 and just over 3/8, so about 5/16 inch on the bottom. All right, so, and really this is about 7/16. So I'm about 1/8 of an inch positive tiller on this upper limb, which should work out just fine. And then you can see, hopefully you can see, get it up here. You can see the shape that I'm going to try and do the handle in. At this point, guys, pulling to 27 inches in our weight class, this is the peak and tweak portion of things, which means it's time to start putting some arrows through it and really starting to narrow down the tips and come into our finishing touches. Any tillering from this point forward should result in a finished, like close to finished state on the limbs and everywhere else. We'll work on taking the rind off of the belly here and taking down these nodes. I probably should do that before I shoot it in so I don't have any sharp edges here that are going to create the opportunity for a splinter. Just got in from the last tiller check, and again pulling down to 27 inches, checking weight in at 47 pounds at that 27 inch mark, 47 and some change. The string at the conclusion of that exercise is tracking really well on these recurves. And so as I described before, I think we're going to start finalizing the groove that we run on that belly side so that we can start tapering down and putting the finishing touches on those tips. Going to go through one more tillering adjustment. So I'm going to put this on the tillering stick, hit it with the gizmo, make any last tillering adjustments that I need to do, and draw it out to 28 inches. All right, guys, here we go. We're going to have to pay really particular attention to the shadows here and not let that interrupt our view of what's going on with tiller. Stand on this side. So we are right here pulling to 26 inches and getting 44 pounds. And we still need to work this in for the changes that we made on the tiller, which were primarily as both limbs. Just we're indicating that they need a little more work on the outer limb. That's basically like the limb tips of your bow, because we just put recurves at the end of the working limbs here. So pulling to 28 inches here now a few times. Really watching those limbs flex. Everything really looks like it's doing pretty well here. Let's take a reading. At 28 inches, we're 49 pounds. Right there at that 50-pound mark. Now, it's a handle forward design, so the marks on this tillering tree might be a little bit longer than what they are stating, right? Because the back of the bow is a little further back than typical. And I'm going to cut the thumb. This is going to be cut in nearly an inch here. So, you know, that 49-pound reading at 28 inches, it's going to be 28 inches pretty fat. Maybe even approaching what would technically be 29 inches. We're just going to keep exercising this a few times here. When we get to this stage, we want to make sure we're pulling to full draw, or we've made it to full draw at least a dozen times. So at 28 inches, really it's settling in around 47 pounds. or 28 rather. 28, yeah, like 47. So we are in the light side of the hunting weight here. And in retrospect, probably shouldn't have taken that little bit off of the sides here, because I was so worried about it running super heavy. That's just a real high early tension that you get with a recurve bow. So the advice here is to not be fooled by a high early draw weight at short distances. Okay guys, that is it. So we are tillered to full draw at this point. We're going to be working on the peaking and tweaking piece of things, putting in the grips, narrowing the tips, shooting it, doing any final tillering, and that is going to be our project for next week, guys. I really appreciate you dropping in this week, and I will see you then.